beer is an industry like no other, because we're more than just an industry. We're a family.
Cryer Malt was founded with beer in hand to simply unite people who love craft beer.
You brewers are the lifeblood of Cryer Malt, so we want to say that we're here for you, no matter what. Cheers.
The Cryer Malt team, along with our supply partners, have been working round the clock to make sure we can provide you with the very best ingredients for top-notch brews.
Because that's what family is for, to be there through the tough times and through the good.
Some of our best memories have been made over a few pints at the pub.
Can't wait to catch up over a cold one once this is over, but we're still enjoying your beers until then.
So from the hop farms in the Pacific Northwest,
from the rolling barley fields in Germany,
and the Great Scottish Highlands here in the UK.
And the barley paddocks down under.
From the crags of Colorado.
And from your local maltsters in Australia, we'd like to say,
we're here so you can keep making your best beer. Cheers.
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 Slanjava.
cheers.
cheers!
Cheers.
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 Hello everyone, welcome to the second of our Cryer Malt Virtual Trade Hub series for Good Beer Week Virtual Festival 2020. Really interesting chat coming up, presented by the team from Pink Boots. I will throw to our hosts. We've got Tiff and Lindsay who will be managing everything, and they will be running this and introducing their guests and doing all those wonderful things. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to drop them into the chat, and Tiff will be able to pass them on to the guests. But for now, let's throw to Tiff and Lindsay.
Cool. Thanks, Luke. Hey, everyone who's watching. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. We are coming from the Pink Boots Society every year for the last quite a few years, actually. We've hosted a panel during Good Beer Week at the Trade Hub to sort of talk about something that maybe we don't always talk about, something a little bit different, another perspective on the industry. And a lot of times it's aimed at women through Pink Boots. But really, I think one thing that we always are really mindful of is that while Pink Boots is presenting this, we know that what the information that we're talking about is actually for everybody. So you'll see it's not just women on our chat with us today. If you don't know, Pink Boots Society is an international organization that supports women in all aspects of the beer and brewing industry through education and basically all kinds of other support. So you can find us at Pink Boots AU on Instagram or search Pink Boots Australia on Facebook to find out more information as well. So today we're going to have a chat about pregnancy and parenting in the beer industry, or really the entire liquor and booze industry. So Lindsay and I are here. We're going to be asking the questions. Neither of us is a parent, but I think that what we do have is a lot of questions about it. And we've got a few people here to join us to talk about their experiences and, you know, all kinds of tips and suggestions and really just things that they've learned along the way. So I might throw to you guys to introduce yourselves. I'll start with Cheyenne.
Hi, thank you, Tiff, for inviting me to this session. I was introduced to you by Steph Howard from Cryer Malt. My name's Cheyenne Wolf. I'm from Yakima, Washington. I've been with Yakima Chief Hops for almost about 5 years now, coming this August. I'm a mother of two under 2. So it's been a busy 2 years and trying to balance kids and the career. It's been very exciting. And I'm just so grateful you guys have invited me to this talk because I do think it's very relevant in our industry. And yeah, thank you so much.
And what's your role at Yakima?
Oh, yes. So I'm part of the sales program. So I work predominantly with Australia and New Zealand, as well as a North American distributor.
Awesome. Cool. Selena.
Hi, everyone. I'm Selena Henschel from Fermentus. I'm the Asia Pacific Communications and Marketing Manager for Fermentus Yeast. And I've only been with them for about 6 months. And before that, I was with Bintani. And I'm also sitting on the board of Pink Boots with Tiff. So thanks, Tiff, for inviting me to this. I have a 17-year-old daughter, Caitlin, a 14-year-old son, Will, and a 9-year-old daughter, Eliza. And when I was pregnant with Eliza, I had a fairly physical job in a winery. So got a bit of experience around, working pregnant and also working as a mother of 3. So
awesome. Robbo? Mark?
Hi, my name's Mark Robinson, or Robbo, as most people in the industry will call me. I'm a brewer at Stomping Ground, and I have 2 young sons at home, Henry, who's 2.5, and Otto's almost 6 months. So it's been a pretty crazy 2 years. And yeah, it's an interesting time with such a young one at home at the moment, but with the whole COVID thing going on, it's actually been a great experience to spend a little bit more time with them.
Yeah, I would imagine. And Roxy?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Roxy Boobers, currently on parental leave from my job as the head of people and culture at Stomping Ground Brewery and the local tap house. I am right in the thick of it at the moment. So I have a 4-month-old daughter who his name's Eleanor Matilda. So yeah, it's pretty fresh to us at the moment.
Awesome. All right.
Amazing. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Where
All
do we
right.
start?
Let's get into this.
Yeah.
All right. So like I said, Lindsay and I, not parents. So if you guys are hearing something or you feel like there's something that should be shared, call it out, let us know. Selena, I know you'll call it out anyway. Yeah. And then especially you guys at home, jump into the chat with questions as well. We may not have all the answers, but I think what's important is that we're talking about it, and we can use this as a platform for jumping off, finding more answers, all these kinds of things. And I think Roxy, especially, it's awesome to have you here as not only a new mom, but as somebody who manages people, especially in a brewery.
Yeah.
All right. So this is probably going to be the most obvious question. What kind of problems have you faced? I think especially with pregnancy and then with small children at home in the whole brewing industry, I suppose.
Whoever wants to start.
That's a big question.
I know. Yeah. All right, let's keep it more pointed. So specifically while being pregnant and working, drinking is obviously a big part of our industry. How did you manage that piece of pregnancy and work?
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to kick off.
Yeah.
I've actually spoken a little bit about this publicly and a lot between our people as well, of my experience of not drinking whilst pregnant. I think the first thing that we should sort of mention is that when we're looking at parental leave policies and that kind of thing, it's really important that we talk about that period as soon as you fall pregnant. These things don't start when you go on leave or when you're talking about returning to work. It's sort of at the very beginning is when any kind of workplace policies or flexibility needs to come in from the very beginning, and that's for males and females. I know that a lot of the guys had required that sort of throughout their partner's pregnancy too. So I guess there's that, having the bit extra flexibility throughout the pregnancy. But not drinking is something that I found really hard. We found out that we were pregnant the week before, a few weeks before Beer Week last year. So obviously it's really early days, so you're not sort of telling everybody. So it was really hard to go to beer events and just, I'm just going to have one or two. I'm going to drive today, and people be like so couldn't believe it that I would go to a beer event and just take it easy. So that was a big thing to try and convince people, it's Monday, it's okay to just have a few drinks, pace myself, it's beer week. But that was just unfathomable to a lot of people. And then sort of the thing around, maybe I'll just pretend to drink. And that's really exhausting as well. Just pretending that you're drinking, and then, you go to drive at the end of the night and people are like, oh, but you've been drinking. So, okay. So I found it quite exhausting, and particularly being someone who enjoys, a beverage or two. And I'm really social as well. I found that I started withdrawing from doing things and seeing people, which was not me either. So it kind of really brought up a lot of questions of, how do we, whether you're not drinking for an exciting reason like pregnancy or a serious reason, it needs to be something that's okay.
Yeah, agreed.
I can really relate to Roxy. With my first pregnancy, I actually had to go to HomebrewCon. It was like the week after I found out I was pregnant. And at HomebrewCon, everybody's pushing you to try their beers. And it was really difficult because you're trying to hide it from your coworkers because you're still in that stage of hoping it'll stay and you'll carry through. And I did end up telling my very close friend at work, and she kind of helped hide it a little bit for me by like drink switching or
drinking all of your drinks.
Yeah, so she took the blunt of it for me. God bless her. But yes, it's really hard because you want to stay social and you want to be within the team, but then you're kind of hiding, and so it is difficult. And I totally relate to Roxy with that.
Do you think that overall, and I think Roxy, this was something you had mentioned once, but overall as in the beer industry, we are so almost offended when someone's not drinking. Like, why? What's wrong with you? And maybe that's something we can kind of look at as an industry as well. Like, if someone's not drinking, just accept it for how it is and don't push them.
Yeah, I think that's something that we talked about a lot in the workplace as well. Like, if someone doesn't want to drink, don't ask them again. But then even though I felt that we had a good culture around that, I still personally felt like I needed to explain why I wasn't drinking. Which, it's strange. I guess there wasn't really a lot of pressure, but you still feel it internally as well, I suppose.
Yes.
Shiana, as you said that someone was drinking your drinks for you. I had a few events like that as well. And at one event in particular, I said to a friend, I need you to cover. I'm really glad you're coming to this event. And she was like, oh, actually, I'm pregnant as well. So I was like, damn, I lost my...
You needed a third wheel to take both of your drinks.
I found a really good way of doing it. You just sort of lose your drink. You're like, I don't know where it went. And you leave it somewhere. And you just sort of continue to lose your drink and pretend you get caught up in conversations and go, I can't find it. I don't know where my drink is. I must have left it.
But really, it should be okay for us to just not drink, and for it just generally in the industry to, it's actually quite healthy to have a few alcohol-free days, or to just have one or two beverages. So I think that's definitely something that we should all keep working on.
And that's where FebFast and those kind of things are really good. And I think more and more people in the industry are, accepting that. And if you just call a dry July and you happen to be pregnant in July, then everyone's going to accept it, I think.
I used the excuse I was beered out.
Just can't do it anymore. So, Selena, are you suggesting that if someone's going to fall pregnant, they need to do it in July before they want to announce?
No, you just make it up. It's FebFast, it's dry July, it's October, it's whatever. Just make it whatever it is. Just go ahead.
We have a question that's come in on the chat, and I think, Selena, this might be a good one for you because I know you said that you were doing some cellar door work and therefore tasting while you were pregnant. So Veronica's asked, is there a difference between drinking and tasting? Do you still taste in your work situation while pregnant, and do you find there's judgment around that?
Luckily for wine, it is very much accepted for you to spit, but beer it's not. You know what I mean? So I was pretty lucky that I was pregnant in the wine industry. So you spit, you just roll it around your mouth and then you spit. So beer you can't. So you'd have to try and not taste, I think, or
Yeah.
I find it's a matter of what you feel comfortable doing as well. Like I was happy to have a few tastes. Joining in sensory, I found quite interesting as well to see if my palate had changed throughout that time. But then I wouldn't taste every single day. So I might just choose the days I'm going to. And I'd have like one little beer, low alcohol beer, or half a glass of wine. But then again, not every day. And it's just really whatever each person is comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. There's a lot of different ideas about whether you can have one a week or none at all, or so the jury's out on that, I think.
Yeah. Well, and you always get, strangers are notoriously willing to put in their opinions whenever they see someone that might be pregnant. So I would imagine that that's difficult to navigate as well.
Yeah. I always feel like I need to explain when I'm taking time off drinking.
Yeah.
No, I'm not pregnant. I'm just taking some time off. But, is that fair? Should we have to do that? I don't know.
Maybe I was just wondering if Robbo could chime in as well about the experience from a male perspective. I know some of our guys were, wanting to cut back as well and found that they had pressure on them too.
Yeah, well, it's even, I'm not doing it because I have a baby inside, but especially once the baby's there, your time to go out, like our industry is all about going and having beers and drinking beers at work and tasting beers, but all of a sudden you have a lot more responsibility at home, or even leading up to the birth, you have to stop. And a lot of my friends don't have kids, so it's for them a little bit hard to understand, like, oh, I can't drink now, or especially I was, going out a lot previously. So yeah, it's the same sort of justification, and there's that sort of stigma where you're kind of, what's wrong with you, you're lightweight and things like that, which just generally, regardless of pregnancy or whatever, just I think needs to change in the industry. It shouldn't be like beer can be enjoyed without having to be drunk all the time. And there is a lot of problems with people drinking too much when we have such easy access. So I don't know, having policies around it in the workplace, which Roxy's done for us, and made everyone aware that sometimes people are going through situations you don't know about and that maybe they don't want to talk about. So you should never pressure them to drink. Your pregnancies are an obvious one, but there's lots of other things where that could be. And as a father, you need to be available to drive when it's getting close and things like that. So it does get frustrating when you have to keep explaining yourself.
Yeah. So with not just pregnancy, but with having kids as well, what are some things that with work that you've found unexpectedly challenging? Like you didn't expect it to be as challenging as what it became, if that makes sense.
Well, my wife and I both don't have family in Melbourne. My wife's from Germany and my family are from far sort of northern New South Wales. And my wife is also, she went back to work at 4 months with our first one. So it's hard juggling. I don't think those traditional roles are there anymore. As you can see from the other women on this panel, they're all working, and so it's not like, the woman stays at home and the man works anymore. My wife is actually probably our main breadwinner. So, and being in the beer industry, it's not a 9-to-5 job. There's festivals and there's shift brewing and, daycare pickup and drop off. So there's a lot of juggling. But thankfully, Stomping Ground's very understanding of that. All our owners all have kids. and they've been very supportive, which helps. It takes a lot of the pressure off feeling like you don't have to justify your stretched time and maybe you can't go to this beer festival. But then at the same time, a lot of beer festivals are very family friendly. So I've taken Henry along to a lot of things, and he comes into the brewery, helps me check gravities on the weekend. And yeah, so I think it's a good job, a good industry to be able to have kids around, even though it is around alcohol. Most people are pretty accepting of children, and especially in our workplace anyway.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I agree. To add to that, breweries now I feel like are making it family friendly. Anytime I go to a local brewery, there's always a kids section, and there's toys, or there's hula hoops, or there's other kids there, and they can play with the other kids. So it's really nice to see that family community in an alcohol situation, but everybody seems to be not getting kind of drinking too much. Everybody seems to be kind of just in a relaxed situation.
And having teenagers, I agree. If your son's learning about gravity at his age, you know what I mean? It's so good. They're really interested. I've got a lot of 18, 17, 16-year-olds around my house, and they ask me questions about how beer's made or how wine's made. And I think as a parent, you're able to teach them respect for what they're drinking rather than sculling it,
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing about being a parent in the industry. And, my kids have learned all about which beer styles they like and why they taste that way and what's in them and how they're made and where they're made and that kind of thing. So you can, teach them a bit of class and good taste in
Yeah,
good
and
dishes and wine.
Sorry, that's so good as well. Like, if you can get a kid involved, even in like understanding that beer is science and it's chemistry and it's not just something to go and get wasted on, and actually, like you said, teach them a lot of respect and like develop their palates. Get some young craft beer nerds, not too young, but that's great. That's really cool. Good way of looking at it.
I think probably following on just from what Robbo said, other things that your specific workplaces have done to make it more family or parenting friendly specifically?
I can go. We've been talking about a parental leave policy for probably about a year, that I'd been sort of slowly working on it and researching, and I sort of when we found out I was pregnant, I stopped bringing it up in conversation because I thought, well, this is going to be awkward. I'm writing my own parental leave policy essentially. But we'd had quite a few, Robbo was on his second pregnancy, and a couple of others in the brew team and venue managers, and it was really important that we actually had something in place. So we'd just brought in before I left, so I can't say to how well it has gone. I'm hoping maybe Robbo can talk about that. But just some extra benefits for parents, so extra leave time, continuing to accrue superannuation and leave entitlements as well. So I thought that was something that you sort of miss out on when you're taking unpaid leave. But the biggest part was about flexibility and communication. So like Robert said, having a bit of flexibility when you after the baby to go to appointments or pickups, that kind of thing, and whilst you're pregnant as well, to same thing, go to appointments, and then the communication throughout the entire time. So between the employee and the employer, as to the working situation. I know lots of brewers, there could be or physical work that people might want to pull back on depending on the time in their pregnancy or the layout of their brew house as well. So yeah, sort of making sure that you're continually communicating throughout the whole time, and then whilst on leave as well, it's really important to keep the communication. I mean, this has been a really unusual time to be on leave as well, obviously with the COVID situation. That's made it a really different time. But then, yeah, also in the return to work, keeping those communication and flexibility open.
Yeah, what they implemented in Stomping Ground, I think, was great, especially from a male's perspective. We only get 2 weeks government leave, and you often take that in the first 2 weeks, which is it's like a whirlwind. You don't even really know what day it is or what's going on. You don't really enjoy any time with anyone. It's all about hospital and getting home and finding your feet. So to be able to take another 2 weeks when you choose, whether that's at 3 months or 6 months, but that's such important time to spend bonding with a new baby, because as a father that you miss out a little bit in the beginning, I think. So it was for me great, and then now to have this extra time, as crazy as it is, and I know economically it's disastrous for our industry, but I'm trying to look at the positives, and I've spent a lot more time with our youngest one, Otto, than I did Henry. And yeah, that's so precious. You can't ever get that back. So yeah, I just try to look at the positive of that. And yeah, our workplace has been super supportive, especially being a male. Sometimes it's a bit judgmental, like, why do you want to spend time with your kids? But I hope that's changing. And my wife's from Europe, where it's really different over there. It's a lot more supported. So I hope Australia keeps going more in that direction, because I think parenting shouldn't just be the mother's job. It should be both parents, whether that's, a male, female, 2 males, 2 females. It shouldn't matter. It's a family unit, and everyone should be involved.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of family around us either, Robbo, and it's so important for both parents to get into a good rhythm and a good routine around a baby and kids and all that kind of thing. So the more time to spend together at home, the easier it is down the track, because you know the rhythm of it, rather than only one of you being home all the time. So I think so too. I think a lot of workplaces are, getting behind parents and, helping us have some more time off and that kind of thing.
I like the positive spin on things and making the best out of the current situation. I think that's definitely a good way to look at it. I think I have a question, and this is probably more towards Rabo, Selena, and Cheyenne at this point, but approaching coming back to work after maternity or paternity leave, do you have any tips for that process? I think it's something that we'll see a lot of after all of this is kind of settling down, is the coming back to work after, even whether you're on maternity or paternity leave, but just from being with your kids all the time that you might have experienced because you've done it before.
Yeah, when I first came back to work, my work was kind enough to let me start out doing half days. So it was a really nice adjustment from going full day with a baby to full day of work. They were just like, why don't you come in and work when you can? And then if you need to go home, go home. And they were very accommodating in that sense. And I know personally, I was really excited to go back to work and have that interaction with adults again. You do have that mom guilt while you're at home or at work, and then you're ready to get back home and see the kids. So I think doing the half days really helped in the beginning, and then it just was an easy transition, just going back to work full time.
I'm with you, Cheyenne. My suggestion was don't run out too quickly, because you'll be like, get me out of here. And if you can do short bursts, I mean, is it okay to talk about breastfeeding and all that kind of thing here? Because someone has to be on milk watch, and you don't last that long. You think it's going to be wonderful, and you're like, oh, thank God I'm going back to work. I'm going to spend 8 hours there. And then you get there and your body starts to tell you that, you're not going to last. So trying to do just a few hours at a time is good for the milk factor. And also you do get really tired really quickly, and it's so important to look after your body and just take it easy on yourself, because it just takes such a long time to get your body back to normal, such a long time. And just, kindness to your body is really important at that.
It was. I think it's important to stay connected while you're off, because I know, especially being part of a brewing team, there's a lot of creativity, and I miss that. What are we doing next? And our work was great. All us, everyone on the brew team, I feel are friends. So I never felt like I was disconnected or not included. Probably the hardest thing I found going back, knowing that I might have to leave or do something, puts extra pressure on your other work colleagues, which is kind of makes you feel a little bit guilty. But I think everyone was understanding. And now two of the other brewers have also had kids. So yeah, there's a bit of a joke going around at Stomping Ground that there's something in the water. And we keep reminding Lindsay not to drink the water. Yeah, it's just stay connected with your workplace. Don't feel guilty if you have to run home. Mental health is probably, you're tired and you're stressed, and sometimes, your wife gets mastitis, and, to talk about those things with some young guys, they don't really know. But yeah, everyone at my work now knows what mastitis is, and yeah, it's good. It's good for them. I think they're all prepared now for what's to come.
And you can't underestimate the fact that it's going to be someone else in the workplace, at another time. It's kind of like you're not the only one, and let's be a team and help each other, so that when your time comes, we'll support you too and keep the team up. And I think the employers love to hear from you and how you're going, and and when the time comes, usually you're welcome with open arms. I don't think anyone should be, too concerned about that. It's more you deciding whether you want to go back or not.
And on that, do you have any tips for your colleagues to help support you as a parent as well?
Yeah, I just think don't be afraid to ask how they're going, especially mentally. And it's okay to be tired. Ask if they need some help, I guess. But it's also a great time. There's also a lot of happy moments, and I was happy to go back. Everyone at my work was supportive, so it was a good experience. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask how people are going. Sometimes that's all it takes to brighten up your day a little bit, if you haven't slept the night before.
And you're doing a 6:30 a.m. start. I just don't know how that, I don't know how anyone does it with kids. I have a sourdough starter, and that's enough. Sorry, Selena, what were you going to say?
I think COVID, our COVID experience is just, extending on that, Robbo, because it's important now more than ever for us to ask each other how we are, and give each other a bit of space to, share some stress, or having a down day, or an up day, or a no sleep day, or, because even 14-year-olds wake up in the middle of the night, I'm sorry to tell you. So, we've got to be okay with looking after each other, and, looking after your kids is the most important thing of all. And you can't operate if they're not good. If they're not good, you're not good. So you're not good to anyone,
So I had another question. Do you ever feel like either yourself or others looked at your work performance a little bit more critically? Do you put more pressure on yourself? Because traditionally, or back in the day, people were always like, oh, if they have kids, they have mom brain, or their brain's somewhere else. So do you find that affecting you?
I don't think it affects me, because I know enough parents, and I've been surrounded by enough parents that hasn't come into the conversation. But I imagine that when you're the only one in the workplace who's pregnant or a parent, that might be a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a thing, because, you know, you might have the flu, or, you know, you might have a tragedy in your family, or you might have an injury yourself, or, you know, don't feel like you don't need to worry about that. I don't think you ever need to worry about that.
Yeah.
I found that I put the same amount of pressure on myself to continue doing the same workload that I was doing throughout the entire pregnancy. And I just, in the end, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was just getting so tired. But I was really lucky that everyone around me was so supportive, particularly Justin, my direct manager. And you know, he's the one who would say, you know, I'd say, can I have half a day off to move house? And he's like, no, you take the whole day off and you relax, maybe come in later the next day. So he really had my back throughout all of it. And I guess it's important to have that one person, or particularly a manager, who can really, look out for you as well.
Mm. Yep.
Definitely to come back. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was definitely nervous to come back to work, just to try and get in the flow of things. But I think having that support of my coworkers and how excited they were to have me back really motivated me. Didn't really add any extra pressure, but I was just so excited. I think it just kind of all fell back into place and felt natural again.
Yeah, I guess probably the hardest thing I found was my wife's self-employed, so she doesn't have sick days. So I generally was taking sick days, and I felt a little bit guilty about that. Especially brewing, it means that someone else might end up doing more work, or you've got to call them at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, can you be there in a half an hour? I can't mash in this morning. Henry's can't go to daycare. And especially there was a run of, I'm sure the others who've had kids in daycare know that they get sick a lot at the beginning. But I know that, like Roxy said, Guy, Steve and Justin all have young kids themselves. And so I'm sure they're all aware of just how difficult it can be. But yeah, I did feel guilty about that, because it would mean someone else would end up working more or being put out. Or same with beer festivals, they might have to do a lot more of that than me. But I'm sure, it'll come around. My kids are getting older, and it can be my turn soon when they have kids, hopefully. Or cats or sourdough starters. Or yeah.
Brenda?
I think, so one last thing before we close this up, unless people have questions or what they'd like to add in, is what tips can you give to your fellow colleagues or other women in the industry who are thinking about having kids or thinking about coming back? I think that's probably the one thing, is we don't talk about it enough. So the more we talk about it and share tips, I think the better it is for everybody to feel more comfortable.
My advice is probably the most terrifying or nerve-wracking experience for me was to either tell a boss I was pregnant or tell a boss that I'd like to come back, because usually we hadn't been there in a conversation, and I didn't really know what their attitude was towards mothers and the capability of a mother or any of that. But when I'm honest and I ask the questions and have a really good open conversation, you really find out that that your bosses are happy to have the conversation and either happy to work with you or tell you that there's no, there's limitations to what they can offer you or whatever. But please don't be nervous about having an open conversation, because that's the most important thing to do. And you might be surprised at the answer.
I agree with Selena. When I had to tell my boss that I was pregnant for the second time after only being back at work for a solid 4 or 5 months, I was terrified, because I had just came off maternity leave, and to go back and say, hey, I'm going to need another maternity leave because I'm pregnant again. I was terrified, but actually it was like they were so excited for me, and it was the greatest outcome, and they wanted to work with me, and I really worked myself up for no reason. So definitely just take it with great stride and be confident, and the outcome's usually good.
Mm.
And it also tells them how serious you are about the job, and that if they can work with you on this, they've got a really good, loyal employee moving forward. So, and also opening up those honest conversations strengthens your relationship with the boss as well.
Yeah.
Bravo, any tips for dads looking excited to have kids?
Yeah, I think now especially that there's a handful of us across Stomping Ground and our hospitality venues that have had it. A few of us have talked about like having a bit of a group of fathers to get together, and you can talk to the people who are expecting and learn from their situations, because there's some pretty full-on stuff that happens. It's not easy for your partner mentally, or births can be traumatic, or there's just so much going on. And I know now that there's a few of us, and Roxy's talked about this as well, that just sharing your knowledge, and it's okay. Like, I've had no negative vibe from work at all. Everyone's been supportive. All my co-workers are supportive. No one's ever judged me for not turning up to work at late notice or something like that. So yeah, don't be scared, and look to the people that have been through it, especially ones who, might have 2 or 3 kids who are older, and, because there's constantly new things to learn. Every day is different.
Mm-hmm. And Roxy, as a new mom, somebody who's been in the industry for quite a lot of years, what do you have, any tips for any women, especially who are maybe even now just pregnant, unsure of what the next step is?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the whole industry as a whole sort of talking more about it. And it was really promising last year at BrewCon to see pregnant women attending events. We had babies, we had someone pumping breast milk. Like, we are growing and maturing as an industry, which is really promising, and just to keep talking about it and stuff. I had a really great experience at the opening night for BrewCon last year, and I had a rather drunk brewer come up to me and say, I'll give you some advice about being a parent. I was like, oh gosh, here we go. And it ended up being the best advice I had. And he said, look, you're a smart woman, and Brendan, he's a smart man. All you have to do is listen to your baby and you'll be fine. Don't listen to anyone else's advice. So I thought, you know what, that's great. Absolutely. Listen to your baby, listen to yourselves, and stay connected with your community.
I like that. I like the connection piece. And maybe there is something we need to discuss around having a forum for parents in the beer industry to be able to connect easily. I don't know, this might be taking it a step further than probably we're able to, but maybe that's something we can talk to the IBA about even after this. We do have a question that just came in now. Jack has asked, he's wondering if we know any hands-on brewers who became pregnant. Did their daily tasks change much, and what was that conversation like with altering job roles? I'm not sure if anyone on this call knows of anyone.
I read a bunch of articles today, like with the head brewer from Tin Barrel out of Portland.
Yeah,
that's
Whitney's
a great article.
Superstar. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think she was working literally up until like her birthing day. That's not the right word. Right up until she like was ready to have the baby.
Due date.
Due date. Thank you. Birthing day. Oh my god.
I've had conversations before with female brewers, and definitely, I mean, like you said, being in the industry for a while, 10 years ago, was like, oh gosh, what do we do? But now I know that there was a bit of assumption that, okay, you're pregnant, so therefore you can't do physical work, you can't be around particular chemicals and that kind of thing. But you're not sick, you're just pregnant. So I think having that flexibility in your workplace. And again, it comes down to what you're comfortable doing. Are you comfortable to do the physical work? Do you have pains, or are you comfortable handling the chemicals? And workplaces need to be flexible and find you another suitable role if you're not comfortable doing the one you are.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the teammates will be happy to, support you, just like you would support them, especially with physical stuff. I mean, I was 38 weeks and still, in the winery doing tours and events and all that kind of thing. But, there's a hormone called, what is it called? There's a relaxing hormone that put pressure on your hips while you and just continue on. You get really, really bad hip pain, and take it from me, it's not worth it. So just to look after yourself, and I'm sure everyone will, your team will support you so that you'll support them when they're doing.
Yeah, and every body is different, and everybody has different experiences in pregnancies. So I think it's really important that companies and jobs kind of help. Yeah, like you said, Roxy, what you're comfortable with is very, very important.
Yeah, I think at that, Laura's pointed out, yeah, of course, we have in Pink Boots a number of members who've, been pregnant as brewers, and it's going to be different for each person what they're comfortable with, just as Roxy said. With that, if anybody has any further questions as a woman especially, reach out to us at Pink Boots, and if we don't know the answer, we will open the conversation up to somebody else who might be able to help with whatever your question is. If you need somebody to talk to about it, we'll help connect some people if you need any support. And I can't thank you all of you enough for taking the time out of your day to talk about something that we don't often get to talk about in this industry. And I hope that everybody who's joined us today has been able to gain a little something out of this as well. So Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. And thanks to Crier and Good Beer Week and the IBA for hosting us as well.
Yep.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and special thanks to the Pink Boots crew for organising this and bringing together a really awesome panel. I think this is probably the first discussion I've certainly seen on the topic, and I think it's a really good starting point to explore it as we head down the path of opening up the beer world to more people. I've also put a link to the mental health discussion we had earlier today. If you missed that, it was a really good one. We had some really interesting guests discussing all sorts of mental health aspects, which I think there is some tie-in with self-isolation or isolation, and being away from the workplace. So check that out. We've also got more Trade Hub chats coming tomorrow and Thursday. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about some marketing things, some product development things, and some events. And then Thursday we're doing technical stuff. So we've got ingredients, presentations. So some really great stuff happening. Check out Good Beer Week website for that, and I've also put a link to the comments. But for now, thanks everyone for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to listen to, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.